Hi, I'm Nikki, the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to my channel. Today we're doing a Read Burn Hoard, my favorite feature on the channel, and we are going to be focusing on shelf 17, which I like because it is closer to the ground, easier to get to, and there are actually quite a few good authors on this shelf this month. This feature was originally inspired by Books with Emily Fox's 1 Week, 1 Shelf challenge, and she's currently doing a Read It or Unhaul It challenge that I think is just as fun, so check those out. I've kind of rearranged a few other challenges to leave myself a little more room to read maybe more than one book this month. We'll see how things go. So let's go look at the shelf. Shelf 17. Compared to some of the other shelves, this one really doesn't have a lot of variety, but it has some good ones. So up front and center, I've got some Charlaine Harris, which I've had these paperbacks forever and just haven't gotten around to reading. I am absolutely loving this series so far. There's a couple of key reasons why I haven't read them up until now, but I am enjoying them thoroughly at the moment. And to the point where I am actively gathering some hardcovers. You can see on my hauled card, I've got a few more in here. But I am probably going to read a book from this series just to progress it, regardless of whatever else I pick for this shelf. It would be a shame to come all the way over here into the Harris shelf and not actually read one. So we'll work on that. Get that out of the way. I've got The Traveler by John 12 Hawkes. It's evidently, according to the book, part of a trilogy. I never knew that. I don't know. It's got Monument Valley on the front. Pretty famous spot to take pictures or whatever, as long as you don't get run over. I think I need to research this one because I bought it on bargain. I don't have a lot invested in it, and I don't even really have any idea what it's about. I'm thinking time traveling. So I'm going to set that one aside for further research. And then I've had this stupid compilation here, Forever. It has an Elizabeth Haydn story in it, who wrote The Symphony of Ages, which, panning, is this series here. The first book is such a hard sell, so I don't talk about it very often, but as a whole, one of my favorite things I've ever read. Wicked cool. And this one has been saved because I have, a short story in there. There's also one by Orson Scott Card, George R.R. Martin, Terry Brooks, and even Diana Gabaldon, even though I haven't read or I don't really know anything about Outlander. But anyway, I think one way or another, I either need to read that short story or let that book go, or at least acquire it digitally. Something's got to happen. It's been hanging over my head. And then I have this absolutely gorgeous copy of Dune. This is pretty high up on my list of sci-fi that I've wanted to read, especially considering there's a movie out that I kind of want to see. But I definitely don't want to watch it before reading the book, because then I won't be as interested in the book. But that one is a strong candidate to get read this month. Especially since, spoiler alert, my husband bought me the next two, these like beautiful sprayed edge editions. So I kind of feel like I should be reading them sooner than later. They cost a pretty penny. This series here, first two have a cover, the third one doesn't. The Bronze Canticles by Tracy and Laura Hickman. And I'm not gonna lie, before I started this project, I kind of scanned through the shelves and thought, which books am I gonna be like just fine letting go? Which are gonna be the easy burns? And this was one that every time I look at the shelf, I'm like, yeah, I have no interest in reading those whatsoever. My mom read at least this first one, and look, she DNF'd it. You can tell because the spine is only cracked to here. When my mother DNFs something, you know it's bad. Yeah, I don't know. If you've read it and you've liked it, you can let me know in the comments and maybe I'll consider. But I think right now, the way I'm feeling, I will never get around to reading those. So I'm okay letting them go. I also know that they're available digitally. So if I change my mind, get a wild hair, I can find them again. But I'm sick of looking at them. The Shawman's Crossing by Robin Hobb. This is the only thing from Robin Hobb that I haven't read yet. And actually, that's not strictly accurate. I read the first half of this book. I did the audio narration with John Keating, and it drove me absolutely bonkers. He made everything sound like a question, and it was really annoying, even though things weren't questions. And that inflection made the character sound so stupid, and I couldn't stand it. So I do want to try this one again, but I feel like I need to do a physical read, or I need to go into it more aware
of what the audio has in store. The thing is I tried to read this back when I was in the middle of a bunch of other Hoard books, Realm of the Elderling stuff that I was liking a lot more. So I thought, no biggie, I'll just save it for a rainy day. Now it has been a couple years since the final book had been released, and I'm feeling very itching to get back to her works. So this one is also another strong candidate. I have an advanced copy of the second one here, which is kind of cool, and then I have a really crappy one without a cover. And I might, I'm trying to replace everything with bad covers. What I might do is hang on to it until I reread the first one to see if I'm even going to continue, and then I'll use that. I'll reward myself with that effort by buying an actual nice hardcover of that one. We'll see how it goes. A Crucible of Souls, Book 1 in the Sorcery Ascendant sequence by Mitchell Hogan. I really don't know much about this book other than I got it super cheap, and at the time I bought it, a couple people had read it online and really liked it. So, hanging on to that one, really don't know anything about it. I'm interested enough that I know I want to keep it, but I don't think it'll get read this time around. And then I have The Familiar Dragon by Daniel Hood. This is a old-time science fiction book club compilation. It's got 3 or 4 novels in there. And then I've got a couple of extra books here. Now, I had a ex-boyfriend a long time ago read this series and like it enough that we went and hunted down more in the series. And I don't know, from the cover I'm getting a very Stephen Bruce, Loyosh detective type of vibe, but it's kind of hard to say. But anything that involves a little dragon, I'm totally on board to read. So the problem with these is that it's physical read only. There's not even an ebook for them. And I'm just recovering and still dealing with an eye strain injury. So as much as I would like to finally experiment with this one, I don't think it's going to happen this month. But these for me, this has been on my mom's bookshelf since I was a kid, and she finally decided to unhaul it and I snagged it. But yeah, definitely keeping those. In fact, definitely keeping everything on this shelf. I need to do some research on this and figure out what I'm doing there. And I'm pretty sure I'm unhauling these. So overall, this has been a pretty nifty, easy month. The only thing I need to decide now is what I'm going to read for the challenge. So we'll see. I'll keep you updated. And the beauty is I can already fit in. Look, there's room for 3 more. Ding, ding, ding. I will update you when I figure out what I am reading.
When I filmed my shelf tour, I could practically hear people screaming at the screen, like, read Dune! You haven't read Dune yet? Oh my gosh, are you the only one on the planet who hasn't read Dune yet, who wants to? Yeah, I am. So I decided to read Dune. I picked it up, and over a couple weeks, I am about 30% of the way through it, and I am loving this book so far. I'm feeling drawn back to it. I'm not feeling like I'm having to force myself through it, because I was worried it was going to feel like a chore read. It's heavy. I've heard a lot of negative things about the story, like it's very dated, and the dialogue is a bit clunky, it's a bit boring. And I'm not finding any of those problems. Now, I am doing the multicast audiobook narration with the lead narration done by Simon Vance, and I'm finding it most excellent. My favorite thing about the book so far is this sense of atmosphere and imagery that he's creating. It's basically a desert planet, but there are so many other technologies, and it kind of gives an eerie feel, and it's just really cool. I love all the ideas in it. I am actually feeling a strong connection to the characters, which is not something I was expecting from a classic fantasy. So I think I have been avoiding reading a lot of the heavy hitter classic fantasies because I've been worried that they weren't going to work for me. Because I've discovered that while I appreciate a lot of classic fantasy, did I say fantasy? I meant sci-fi. Well, I've discovered that while I've been reading a lot of classic fantasy books, they haven't been working for me as well as the modern stuff, and so I feel like I'm forcing my way through them. And I thought I would feel the same way about the classic sci-fi, but I don't. I'm really enjoying what I'm reading, to the point where I'm like, wow, can't believe I let this sit on my shelf for so long. But the thing is back when I was a bookseller, I actually bought the whole series of Dune, at least the first 4 books. It was in a box set, and I had so many customers come in and tell me, oh, like, you're gonna struggle with that one. It's not a very good series, that I ended up returning it. Like, customers, several different customers independently of one another talked me out of reading the series, and so I thought, okay. And so I've been kind of scared about it for a long time. But finally this beautiful edition came around, which I'm so grateful for because, like I said, I'm really enjoying the series so far. I can't wait to see what's next. It's one of those where I have just kind of flown through. And let me be clear, it is nothing like I thought it would be. Nothing. But I love the societal things. I love the different types of people and the factions on this world. And yeah, everything about it is working for me. Hints of like giant worms. Really cool. Yay, loving it. Now, simultaneously, I am also reading Dead to the World. It's book 4 in the Sookie Stackhouse series. And I'm about, I don't know, 30% of the way through. And what took me so long to read this series? I read the first one ages ago, and honestly, back then I was reading a lot of urban fantasy, and the crimes in that first book were a little grittier than I felt prepared to handle. Like, it kind of left me with kind of an icky feeling, and I didn't like that feeling, so I never went back to the series. There's also a lot of sex in this series. Flash forward to nowadays, where I have consumed a fair share of grimdark books, and so things like what was involved in here didn't bother me nearly as much anymore because I've read worse. I've also since watched the show, True Bloods. For some reason, the series was just too intimidating to me before, but now I find myself without a really good urban fantasy going because I'm up to date on all of my favorites. Yay! I have a new one to get into that's really good, and I'm just super excited about it. So that's why I've been gathering all the hardcovers. But anyway, this particular book, I'm starting to see more of the other characters that showed up in the show pretty early on, but to this point in the series really haven't gotten a spotlight yet. The brother in particular, I feel like his POV in the show added a lot of like periphery perspectives that were really important to kind of understanding what's going on in this city, or town rather. And in here, it's just now starting to make things happen. I mean, the writing in this, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I think the writing for this series is absolutely exceptional. Like, the author had a clear character in mind and executed to perfection this character. And when the character does something stupid, the author hangs the lantern on it and makes it clear that she's doing that on purpose to further the plot of her story. Everything about it, I think, is superb, and I am enjoying it thoroughly. So yeah, I have 2 books going this month, and neither of them feel like chores. I'm having so much fun. So yeah, hopefully it continues that way. I can't wait to update you again later. Let's talk about Dune for a minute. So I'm probably about 60% of the way in, and I'm getting everything from it that I was hoping to get from it when I started the book. It's like a lot of really, like, imagery, this amazing imagery where you really feel like you're in this desert, and you just, I don't know, the sensory is so good at bringing you into the moment and making you feel like you're there. I'm really loving it. The characters, the profiles are unlike anything I've read before. I mean, they're really dynamic, and there's just a lot going on to the point where I feel like we should be a little bit further along in that development in the story at this point. When I say should be, I mean, I'm surprised that it's not further along, but I'm also so interested in what's going on, and I think the pacing is great that I'm not too worried about it. Even if we don't get answers in this book, I'm still excited to continue on in the next one and kind of see what happens there. But yeah, totally enjoying my process with this one. A thing I noticed is that he'll take you into the POV of the villain, and normally I hate that. I don't want to know what's going on behind the scenes or with the bad guys because it usually just seems really flat. Like, the villains are flat. It's hard to do well. In this case, I feel like the bad guys are the opposite side of this conflict. Like, they have a lot to offer, and they feel like deep, rich characters, and so I'm enjoying those scenes just as much as with the protagonists. And there's also, like, things aren't happy and bubbly with the protagonist either, and I like that. I like that it's not just like this typical, really likable character who's going to go do all the things and, you know, be really happy about that and inspire people. I don't know if that's what's coming, but right now he's not a very likable character, not at the base of like his behavior and what he's talking about, but it seems organic to the character based on what he's been through at this point. So anyway, I'm really enjoying it. I can't wait to see what happens next. And though I didn't mark where I'm at, probably at about this point. So yeah.
liking it.
I did a thing. I ordered a couple of books for my Read Burn Hoard shelf. Now, here's the thing, like, my intention is not to buy a lot of books for the project, because I do enough of that aside from this. But I do plan to curate each shelf as I get to it. The whole point being leaving the best books for the next time I make it around to that shelf. I'm trying to like weed out all the duds. And sometimes that means you gotta buy some stuff. I'm hoping the books get here before the end of the project so I can show you, but yeah, I'm pretty excited. I may or may not have replaced my Robin Hobbs.
These books arrived in time and I'm so excited I get to share them with you. So these are the UK edition hardcovers of the Soldier's Son trilogy, and I freaking love them. Absolutely gorgeous. And then even better, the first one is signed. Oop. I love it. Yeah, this is like, I don't know, spending a lot of money on books was not really my intent when starting this project, but Robin Hobb shall not be overlooked because she's still my favorite writer. So yeah, here's the after. I think we are definitely headed in the right direction here. Dune. I freaking loved Dune. I loved everything about it. I thought the pacing was awesome. I thought the world building was so cool. The atmosphere it created. There's an X factor in world building. Like, can you feel the atmosphere? Do you feel thirsty when you're reading Dune? Like, it's so good. So good at creating like this eerie stuff. I thought the characters were really interesting. I was afraid that the book would be too dated and it would be difficult for me to follow the dialogue. It would be a little bit dry. It would be hard to care about anything going on. Found the opposite true. I found that I was totally engaged with everything. I don't pretend that everything made sense at the beginning of the book, but as things progressed, I started figuring out more and more what they were talking about. And I thought it was such a good book. I am really excited to have read it. I don't know if my younger self would have appreciated it as much, so I am not too disappointed that it took me that long to read, but I find myself eager to continue on in the series, which is something I had not expected. So, like, this is funny. I was telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, have you read Dune? Like, Dune is amazing. Like, have you ever read it? Evidently, she watched the movie in the 80s and was like, no, I'm good. But yeah, I'm talking to people. I'm like, have you read Dune? Because, you know, people in my daily life don't really read a lot, but I'm like, yeah, this one was pretty good. So now I'm going to be watching the movie at some point, really interested in that. Very excited to continue on with the second book because this one, like the end of this one, without spoilers, but it kind of marks a new beginning, kind of. Like, start of a new chapter where there's so much more that can be explored, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to getting into. So, loved Dune. Very excited I picked that one for this experiment. And then I finished Dead to the World by Sookie Stackhouse, by Charlaine Harris, part of the Sookie Stackhouse series. The big reveal of this book, the mystery, I was like, oh, I forgot they didn't know that already because I've seen the show and I knew about it from the show. So the big punch, like, boom! This is who did it. I'm like, oh, I already knew that, but that's okay. It was still really good. Action in this one, there was a lot of action packed. There's a dynamic between Sookie and this other character that really gets explored in this book, and I kind of preferred the way they did it in the show a little bit better. Here it was kind of ever so slightly cringeworthy, and she acknowledges that it's cringeworthy at least, so hangs the lantern on it, makes it okay. I've been having trouble trying to describe the series because it's definitely not a paranormal romance. Like, the point of the story is not the love angle. It's very prominent in it, but that's not the point of the story. It's all about, like, Sookie trying to navigate the supernatural world, and it's more about her and less about the other people. I mean, they play a role, but so I would not put it in paranormal romance. However, there was a ton more sexual content in this series than in any other urban fantasy that I've read. So if you go into it, it's not going to be like disgustingly romantic, but there are a lot of sex scenes. And so, but they're really long sex scenes too. So if you wanted to skip it, you got to skip like 10 pages at a time. Because I am all caught up in my favorite urban fantasy series, like this is my favorite one that I am actively reading right now. I'm not sure how it's going to compare to some of my all-time favorites. I'll have to let you know once I get to
like the end of the series, but at the moment, like as far as character strength and fun factor and writing style, totally awesome. Can't wait to read more. Here's the final shelf tally. The Dune stuff is gone because I am currently reading Children of Dune. I've just flown through that series and really enjoyed it. I'm still looking for hardcover replacements for these titles. I've got a good bit going here. Never did get around to reading that short story, but hopefully eventually. Curated my Robin Hobb collection. I'm so stoked. I need to get these read so I can get them over on my filming side of the room. And then keeping Crucible of Souls and the Familiar Dragon series. So next time I hit the shelf, it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's take a look at what I'm burning. And this is the burn stack. Aside from the series that I replaced in hardcover, I am pretty happy about my decision to let these go. I really don't think I would have read them within the next 5 to 10 years. Overall, a really good month, one of the most enjoyable reading months I've had in a while, and probably one of my favorite shelves in my unread collection. It is time for my favorite part of the process, picking my new shelf. Okay. Shelf 30. That is what we will be focused on next month. And that is one of the highest up shelves, so wish my shaky camera good luck. So that's everything. I think I've been doing my Read Burn Hoards a little bit out of order. I've been kind of scattered, so I've went ahead and started the next shelf already because I had finished I was mostly done with these books and really eager to go on to the next one. So I've gotten my filming schedule all confused. So I think I have resolved everything. I've picked a new book. I've shown you what I'm keeping. I've shown you the new books that I picked up. I'm so excited about those. And yeah, so next month we will be talking about a different shelf, and thank you so much for supporting my channel and supporting this particular project that I'm doing. It's my favorite, and I think it's a lot of your favorites as well. So anyway, thanks for joining me, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.